Thanks to the support as a channel member, Kevin McKenna. Here we go then, boys and girls. We've reached the giddy heights of Tier 8. We've had our budgets doubled. We've had the youth team scrapped, but we don't need to worry about that. We need to put together a team that can maybe sort us out with a back-to-back promotion. I can't do. It's so unlikely I can't even get the words out. Welcome to part 30 of Wembley to Wembley. I'm Kevin. Coming up on today's episode is our season review and transfer special at the end of our promotion season. No trophies, though. We didn't get to do a trophy lift, but of course we have been promoted. If we have a look at who our signing of the season is, Deal Everett, I don't think we can really argue with that. 10 goal contributions as a guy who was 19 years old when he signed. I mean, the board gave me a D for him. Mainly down to giving the player a wage that's too high for his place in the squad. Deal Everett, I mean, I guess, okay, £80 a week. Although, to be fair, he is listed as a star player, so that seems fairly reasonable to me. But then I guess they're basing that on the fact that they're not allowing me to offer more than £35-40 a week, or they weren't until we got promoted. I imagine now we've been promoted and we've had our budgets doubled, we'll be able to give loads more big money contracts out. Josh Gray probably could have stuck around. Other players who came in, Albert Wood, I think, is going to go on to become a really useful player for us. Obviously, we brought in some decent loans as well, and we're going to have to focus in on loans again this summer. We only signed 3 permanent players last summer. That doesn't feel right. I don't think that's taken into account the players who arrived and then left. It's not. So the likes of Joe Turpin arrived and left in the same season. Don Franklin arrived and left in the same season. So if they're not still here, they don't get to go on the signing of the season. We learn something new every episode, boys and girls. So the board were looking for me to finish top half, having been in the playoffs the 2 previous years. We obviously wanted to go one better and either win the playoffs or win automatic promotion. We did manage to finish second, albeit in a season that had the lowest points totals for promotion this league has ever seen. But we finished second, 1 point behind Rayners Lane, and of course won the playoffs. Anton Canerva, our top scorer. Finally, that is a sentence that I can say. And we've been promoted, and that's the most important thing. Financially, obviously, we had a very rocky season. All this stuff has inexplicably reduced, despite the fact that we've had a promotion season. But of course, this was the year where we were days away from going into administration, had to take out a £500,000 loan, had to scrap the youth setup, had to sell the youth facilities. That's all going to properly come into effect this summer. We haven't had a youth intake. So now we've reached the end of the season, I can confidently say there has been no youth intake because we have no youth setup. We do still have 2 youth teams, but I imagine either they'll just be cancelled off and we won't be in the leagues next year and we can release most of those players, or they'll just kind of naturally dwindle away over the next few years with us not bringing in new youth intake players. So in addition to bringing in first teamers, we probably need to see if there's 1 or 2 youngsters we can bring in, although to be fair, focusing on youth hasn't done us much good over the last several seasons. So maybe it's for the best that we just have to go and get like a squad of 18 to 20 proper journeyman players for this level. And I mean, with a budget of £2,000 a week, we could go and get 18 players on like £120 a week, which is 3 times what we're paying our best players now, and have a really, really top squad. So I'm quietly confident that the youth system going might be a blessing in disguise and we could end up securing another promotion. Fingers crossed. We want to get some momentum going in this career. So, player awards. Anton Canerva wins Fans Player of the Year, Young Player of the Year, Top Goal Scorer, Most Man of the Match awards, highest average rating. It's fair to say Anton Canerva quite popular. Deal Everett, as we know, signing in the season, also got goal of the season. Chadder got most assists with 12 from left back, and then we've set some club records as well. Canerva, most goals in a season at 20, most league goals in a season at 18, most assists. Chadder sets the club record for that. Anton Canerva is now our all-time record goal scorer with 48 goals, and George Beattie becomes our oldest goal scorer at 30 years old. So let's lump into the bits and bobs that we've got in here. We've got our all-time best 11, which still has Harry Dillon in goal, who is now playing for Kingsley Westside FC in Australia. He is Australian. Did I know that about him? I'm not sure that I did. Chadder's our best ever left back, who of course is still here. Ryan Cornish, who was here on loan years ago, like 3 years ago, is still considered in our all-time best 11 alongside Drakos, who I think has broke his way into that this year, and Josh Gray, who I would love to be able to bring back, but I suspect we're not going to be able to. At the base of the midfield, George Brush, who of course was here in the first season, alongside Sean Martin, one of our youngsters who we've persisted with. And the likes of Brush and Cornish should not be in the all-time best 11. It's still the box formation as well. And then Josh Hamilton, who, after leaving us, went to Nuneaton Griff, but has just retired. He was there until 2027. It is 2027. So at 27 years old, Josh Hamilton has retired. And Dom Pearce, of course, left us last year to go to Bristol or Bristol Manor Farm, who play in tier 10. So he's dropped down a level, now 2 levels below us. And poor old Dom Pearce is not going to make it, I don't think, unlike Sean Martin and Janis Drakos. And then BT and Canerva up front, of course, both still here, although BT for sure will be leaving this summer. The board want me to repair the club's financial damage. I mean, what do you want me to do? Pay off this 25-year mortgage you got? The balance is fine. Projections are fine. We're well within budgets. I'm not really sure what more they expect me to be able to do to repair that financial damage, but fine. They want me to play attacking and counter-attacking football and also develop players using the club's youth system. Can you not tell them? Because they don't listen to me. If one of you could tell them, that would be handy. And also work within the wage budget. No mention of targets in the league because plans will be set when the club ownership is resolved, which is alarming going into what is going to be a big summer for us. Because if they slap a transfer embargo on me, that will be very problematic. So we might have to start doing moves early, which we don't normally do. We normally wait for the 1st of July, but waiting for the 1st of July could potentially be quite the risk. There's rumours of a potential board takeover. The club finances are still showing as insecure, which I don't really understand why, unless they're doing it on some kind of debt to asset ratio that we don't even see in game, which would be a little bit advanced for Football Manager, I think. But yeah, I'm interested to see how this youth system thing resolves. And we should probably renew some contracts and sign some players. Let's get on that now. So we've made it through to the 1st of July. I don't really understand what cancelling a youth setup means, other than the fact we don't get a youth intake anymore, because our under-18s are still playing in the National Under-18 South East League this year. We just haven't had any new ones filter through. So that's going to be interesting. But we have, as I say, made it to the 1st of July. We just did the one signing as part of my starting early. He was a good one, though. AD Burton-Jones, highest paid player in the history of the football club, comes in from Bromley on a free transfer to be one of our starting defensive midfielders. We've also renewed a bunch of contracts as well and let 1 or 2 expire. There's not a huge number of players who've left the club. George BT is the only one of any kind of note, really, who had a good first season with us and then just really went off the boil last season, started to be in and out of the team. He's 31. We can move him on. So going into the 1st of July, with all our loan players coming back, we're actually a little bit closer to being spent up on the wage budget than I thought we would be, but obviously a lot of those youngsters are going to get loaned out again. We have a lot of these young players on £5 a week, £20 a week, who will basically let their contracts run down or loan them out, or a combination of the two. So I'm pretty confident that that's going to drop down to like 12 or 1300 to allow me to bring in the players that we need. And we definitely need some players because our squad planner at the moment is kind of disastrous. Ben Wood, the only goalkeeper. We don't really have a right back. Wood is a centre back. At left back, Mike Kemmerer is a piece of good news. He was out on loan at May and Baker last year and had a fairly average season playing down in tier 10, but has come back as a 4-star player. So our 2 best players are both left backs, Chadder and Kemmerer. So we might end up playing Chadder a little bit further forward so that we can play Kemmerer in the team as well. But he's not going to be loaned out again this year. At centre back, we are a little light. Wood and Drakos probably would be our starters currently, but we obviously need to bring some players in there. We've got Burton-Jones as a defensive midfielder, and then the likes of Martin, Boxall, Page, who will be there as our backups, our young backups, but we need to bring in some more players. Attacking midfield, there's basically no one. Left wing, we've got DL Everett and then a bunch of youngsters. Right wing, it's basically no one. And up front, we've got Josh Bayliss, Anton Canerva, who's still only showing us 2 stars of current ability, but obviously had a pretty good season for us last year, and if he can continue to progress, I'm not that upset about him being an option across the front three. We probably do need to bring in another striker. There's basically we need to bring in lots of players, because if we have a look at the league, we are going to be playing in the Isthmian League Division 1 South Central next year. If we look at the season preview is relegation. The only team we're better than is South Park. They're obviously just a cartoon, not even a football team. So that's a little bit alarming. Rayners Lane, who of course came up with us, also expected to struggle. I don't think there's a huge amount we need to do to start moving up this league. Enfield were down in our league a year or 2 back, so they're not a gazillion times better than us. I think we can put something together, but the most recent takeover bid has failed again. My chairman is still looking to leave, but there's not currently any bid being discussed. Our finances are still showing as insecure. And there you go, confirmation that we had another failed takeover bid in there. But financially, we're still looking fine. So, I mean, that has all of a sudden taken a little bit of a turn, which I'm not really sure about. But that's not really my concern. I'm the first team manager, not the finance director. I've said that before, and I'll no doubt say it again. The plan is to stick with the 4-2-3-1 control possession system that we used last year. As it stands right now, before we've made any transfers other than Burton Jones, that is our best 11. Expect there to be new players coming in to improve on that best 11, though. So let's bring in some free transfers, shall we? Oh, and the board are just looking at me to attempt to avoid relegation, which, I mean, I think that's fine, because if we get relegated, I still won't get sacked, is generally what that means. I don't know how we're struggling to repair the club's financial damage. We're highly disappointed with your apparent disregard for the club's finances and urge you to improve matters. What do they want from me? I am within my budgets. I don't understand what they want from me. But let's sign some players. That'll solve that problem. Well, it seems there's some good and some bad about our promotion and subsequent increase in stature. Bad is that we just offered contracts to about 15 players and only 2 of them signed for us. Everyone else went elsewhere. They're pretty good, though. Nico Downey is a 20-year-old defensive midfielder with some decent potential. And we've also got Diego Macaulay, who's a 20-year-old defensive midfielder who's already good enough to start. So actually, we've got a pretty decent starting defensive midfield partnership now with Burton Jones and Macaulay, and lots of spare money still in the budget because no one else wants to sign for us. The other good is that the season doesn't start until August, so we've actually got a little bit more time. So it's only the 9th of July, but we can go back round for another couple of rounds of offering players trials, which we're definitely going to need to do, because this team is still not where I want it to be. I mean, as much as I love Russ Eddy and Anton Canerva, I don't know that these guys should be starting. Wood in goal, for example. There's a number of places we definitely need upgrades. So we are gonna keep pushing at it and hopefully start moving up the media prediction. I haven't actually checked in. There you go. Those 2 signings have already moved us up another place. We're going places, boys and girls. Well, I've got some defenders. We've got a guy called Ali Omar, who's a 6'3" centre-back, who's previously done the non-league tour and actually played some games in the Football League, or been at some Football League clubs anyway. Didn't actually play for any of them, but that's fine. We're in tier 8. He doesn't need to have played with them. His defensive partner can be Luca Purse, formerly of Rushden and Diamonds. We've also got Ollie Duthie returning to the club, who was here on loan a couple of years ago. He returns for another loan spell after his successful loan previously. We also have Jamie Sant as a returning loan, a returning hero, because when he was here before, he got 17 goals and 9 assists in just 27 appearances, a 7.5 average rating. He was our best, probably the best player we've had at any point in the series. He's been playing for Bedworth for the last couple of years at this level and not exactly reaching the same heights, but hopefully reuniting him with our team can bring the best out of him again. Although, of course, we play a very different style of football now, so we shall see. And we've also signed a right back, Kyle Leroy, who is 18 years old, was released by Watford. This is the first player of this kind we've been able to get, the ones that are released by the Premier League championship kind of level clubs, the youngsters, and this is like the prototype for where we want our transfers to be. But this is the first guy we've been able to convince to actually come in and play for us. While that's been going on, we've loaned a lot of players out, so the finances currently looking like this. We're just about balancing the books. There's a couple more players we're trying to get in. There's a bunch more we're trying to loan out, and our current best 11 looks like this. So I think that's looking pretty solid. We'd like an upgrade on Wood in goal. We've got a couple of options that we're potentially looking at, one permanent, one on loan. But at the moment, Ben Wood will be our goalkeeper for the extra preliminary round of the FA Cup this year. This back four of Chadder, Omar, Duffy and Leroy, I think is probably the best back four we've ever had. And of course, we've got some decent backups in the shape of Wood, Perse, who's just come in, Mike Camera, who's going to hopefully have a breakout season for us this year. We already know our defensive midfield is looking strong. Burton Jones, Downey, Macaulay. We've still got Sean Martin knocking around as well. So I'm pretty comfortable in defence and midfield. Would just like to upgrade the goalkeeper. Bayliss as a starting striker, I'm happy with. He's scored goals the last couple of years. Maybe not to the level we would hope for, and we'd quite like to upgrade him. Canerva obviously can come on for him as well, but maybe one more striker would be nice. But Sant, bringing him back in there, I think is a big deal. Tom Best is I guess almost another one. I mean, he did pass through MK Irish on the way through, having left Wickham, but he's still only 19. He had a very good season for MK Irish, who were playing in Tier 9, our level from last year. Averaged over a 7, 11 goal contributions, so he can play on the left. D11, of course, we know what we get with him on the left-hand side as well. And I think it's a very strong start at 11. The media are less convinced. They still think we're going to get relegated, although our odds have come down from 250 to 1 to 50 to 1. So we're obviously improving things somewhere, somehow. But I don't know that we're necessarily just going to storm through the league again this year. We've got a squad of 22 players in the first team and still a bunch of under 21s and under 18s to load out, although nowhere near as many as we had before. You can see almost all of them have moved out now. So I don't know that we're going to be able to bring in much more in the way of players we have to pay for, but we've only got 2 loans in the squad so far. So there's room for another 3 loans. I'm assuming the rules are the same at this level as they were in the league we were just in, only able to have 5 at a time. I am trying to find some confirmation of that. If we can have more than 5, we will fill our boots, that's for sure. That's interesting that there's a minimum wage of £400 a week. That can't be right. For 22 to 21-year-olds as well. I mean, nobody's earning that with us, so I don't really understand what that minimum wage situation is. Luca Perse has just come in on £180 a week. I really hope that doesn't mean he's not going to be allowed to play for us. I've now panicked myself by looking at the rules. I'm going to assume they're going to be fine, but I can't see anything there about loans. I'm sure you'll yell at me in the comment section because you've seen the loans as I'm just scanning through. Believe it or not, quite hard to read this entire screen. Oh, there it is. Whilst talking. So emergency got maximum of 6 foreign-based players over 22 on loan at a time. Maximum of 6 players were allowed. So it doesn't look like there's a limit on loans other than we're only allowed 6 fully grown foreign ones. So we could bring in a load of loans yet. If we can get them for free, that's got to be a good thing. But we will stop there because we're about to play the first qualifying round of the FA Cup, and then we'll also have our first ever game at this level where we're going to be playing Fisher, who are another newly promoted team who I'd like to go and beat. Please and thank you. But we'll worry about that in the next episode. If you've enjoyed that, please make sure you leave a nice big thumbs up on there for me. Subscribe to the channel for daily Football Manager videos. And thank you very much for watching.